I wanted to show you. This is still not a tutorial, and there are plenty of good tutorials, but I've been talking about the wheel. Now, the shape that I'm trying to make now is such a sharp compound bend structure that if you're going to do it in the I was talking about making most of the big panels that only bend one way first, but maybe you realized when you saw me banging away at this panel that I changed my mind, mostly for my own amusement, and decided to make a panel which will fit down here and has a lot of shape into it. And I don't know how much you can see, but I'm halfway. It's taking shape, but I'm halfway. I still had a lot of shaping to do, and it will be sitting here eventually. Now there's quite a bit of banging, quite a bit of wheeling into this shape already, and wheeling will take maybe forever because you have to both shrink and stretch. Now, at least in my mind, a better way to shrink something and even to give it the shape you want to is to have cups or bowls like these. And I've been using this one quite a lot to obtain the shapes that I have down here. And it's a much faster way of doing it. And as you can see, I can wheel all those little walnuts, all those little bumps out of the metal in the wheel. So those two tools work fine together. They called it tuck shrinking. And because if you put a piece of sheet metal like this into a cup and you hammer on it, you get a tuck. And eventually you kind of force this tuck together, which shrinks the metal. And you have to do that at the outer edges of any kind of shape like this. So I've been using this one a lot, and it's just, I would like a bowl that's pretty much mimics this shape almost perfectly, because then I could just hammer away and know that it's going to be very close to the shape that I need, especially over here. They also call it stump shrinking, because usually, now this is not a stump, but it's what I had at the time. It had enough surface so that I can make these different cups, but I do have a stump. So now I think I'll make another tool, another even shallower cup, so that I can pretty much hammer the shape that I want in this panel. We'll see how that goes. I made my tool. As you can see, there isn't much of a bowl, but it's just right for what I need right now. This is all it takes. And with that bowl, you can see I've had to use, like you English say, some elbow grease, some sweat, honest sweat, to achieve this. If I had a power tool, I wouldn't have to work like this, but they're a lot of money and I don't have one, and I kind of enjoy making them by hand. As you can see, it looks pretty much, well, like crap, to be honest, right now. And I've heard people calling these Marx walnuts, and it's a pretty good description of what you kind of end up with when you keep beating them with a wood mallet. I also wanted to show you that there's quite a few interesting things happening if you're interested in shaping sheet metal when you start to make a shape such as the one I want, because this portion of this piece does not have the same shape. it's much more shallow or even flat, you know, because it's going to fit right here along this side. So I haven't been working on that part because it won't have this round curve. But as you can see, there's a lot of things happening to this part as well, because as I'm bending this part, I get excess metal here, which will have to be shrunk. It will have to be compressed. So I will do that, and that's not really hard. You just kind of have to lock a piece in like this, and then you can get these wedges out just by compressing the metal. So eventually this part will be much flatter again, and then I can wheel it to the kind of curve that it needs to have. So we'll see what this looks like the next time I turn on the camera. The panel is on and looking fairly decent. Ready to be welded to the bird cage. But more than anything, it's been one of those examples of not getting it right, not succeeding, causing a lot of extra work, in some way retracing your steps and do it over again. I don't know if you can see, but if this had been a panel where the surface was going to be shown, I would have had to start over again. It's not looking too good right here. The reason is I overstretched it and made too much of a shape in this area, and I had to work like the dickens to shrink it again, basically hammer it back. And as you can see, this is all the marks with the metal where I crunched it together. And I managed to shrink it so it's fairly decent. And since it's not going to show eventually, I'll be using some, filler Bondo before eventually, which is my plan, to paint the trailer in colors similar to the Worcester. So I can live with that. I won't be making another piece. But there will be some filler on that. I made another decision. When I made the Worcester, I did what they call butt welding, which is just, having a seam like this where the panels meet, and then you try to weld it as best you can, which wasn't always going really well for me, especially back then. I'm a little bit better now. But these panels will only be shown from one side, so I made the decision where I won't butt weld, because it will make a stronger seam, and it'll be easier for me when I'm welding the panels together. So I made something like this. I don't know if you call it a swage, but it's like an indentation here in the metal. So that's what I made all along this part of the panel. So it's actually sitting a little ways behind this panel. So that way I don't have to be quite as careful. I don't have to bore holes in the panel as easily as I would otherwise have. So that probably is something that I will keep on doing where it's feasible, to have the panels overlapping like that. Now, once again, tools, money, things that stopped you from doing things. I'm sure you could do something like this with, just a hammer form and get the same result. But I do have what it says on mine. It says it's a rotary machine. Machines similar to this are called bead rollers. Some call this a swaging machine. But I can put strips of metal in between these two wheels and I can shape it. And for those of you who are familiar with that, you can also change wheels and do lots of different kinds. This one isn't too expensive. It's manual, probably around $200 now. A lot of people have electric ones, which of course is great because you can use your hands, to move the metal around, and you can put it, in gear, and it will keep on going. I thought maybe one day I have electric engines, electric motors lying around, that it would be nice to kind of hook it up. But then again, I have a limited space. It's going to be a machine that sits around all the time. Now this one I can only always, unscrew and just put it away when I'm not using it. So, first shape panel on.